A Korean mafia boss fixed a woman's car on his way to a blind date, not knowing she was the very woman he was dreading to meet. Have you ever found yourself in a situation so ridiculously ironic, you were certain the universe was playing a prank on you? Before we continue with their story, think about that for a moment. Amara Okoro believed the universe had a sick sense of humor. On a Tuesday evening, when she should have been finalizing a merger agreement worth a fortune, she was instead preparing for a mandatory blind date. From her corner office on the 47th floor, the city lights blurred into a glittering carpet below, a kingdom she was conquering one legal battle at a time. The snow, which had started as a gentle flurry, was now a swirling curtain of white. She hoped it might be her excuse to cancel, a sign from a higher power than her best friend, Felicia, who had arranged the whole thing. "He's a good man, Amara," Felicia had insisted. "Successful, from a very respectable family. Just give him a chance," Amara had scoffed. At 29, she was a senior associate on the fast track to partner, a reality built on sleepless nights and a will of steel. A beautiful and brilliant African woman, she had no time for romance, which she saw as a messy distraction. The man's name was Kenji Tanaka. His profile was frustratingly vague, listing him as an importer/exporter, which could mean anything. She hated being set up and hated being told what was good for her. A text from Felicia buzzed. "He's on his way. Don't you dare cancel." Amara sighed. Fine. She would go, be polite, and be gone in under an hour. Across town, in a garage that smelled of motor oil and old leather, Kenji Tanaka felt the same dread. He wiped grease from his calloused hands with a rag, his eyes on a restored 1960s Mustang. Here, he wasn't the heir apparent to the Jade Serpent Syndicate, the powerful mafia his grandfather had built. He was just a mechanic, a man who understood the honest logic of an engine. His grandfather's order had been clear. "You will meet this woman. Her family has connections. This alliance will be beneficial." Kenji knew it wasn't about love. It was a strategic move on a chessboard he never wanted to play on. He was 35 and had spent years walking a tightrope between the brutal laws of his family's business and the simple peace he found in this garage. The woman, a lawyer named Amara Okoro, was an unknown. He imagined someone cold and calculating, just like the people in his world. He much preferred the company of a stubborn engine to a strategic dinner conversation. He pulled off his work coveralls, revealing a simple black Henley and dark jeans. Waiting for him was his other uniform, a perfectly tailored black mafia suit and a crisp white collared shirt, the armor he wore for his other life as a powerful Korean mafia boss in training. He hated putting it on. Looking out the grimy window, he saw the snow was coming down hard. Maybe, just maybe, the weather would give him an excuse to cancel and keep his two worlds from colliding for one more night. The snow, it turned out, was not an excuse but a trap. The drive from Amara's downtown office to the fancy restaurant, the Gilded Orchid, should have taken 20 minutes. 40 minutes later, she was stuck. She had taken a side street to avoid traffic, a tactical mistake. The poorly lit road was covered in deep, fresh snow. Her high-performance tires spun uselessly until the car slid sideways into a snowdrift with a soft thud. She was stuck. A string of curses filled the quiet car. This was the opposite of the efficient evening she had planned. Her phone had only 2% battery left, and she was wearing beautiful but completely impractical high heels. Trapped and furious, she slammed her palm against the steering wheel. Everything in her life was controlled and precise. This was messy and unpredictable. She flicked on her hazard lights and watched the blinking orange glow reflect off the falling snowflakes, feeling utterly helpless. Meanwhile, Kenji had chosen the same side street for a different reason. His reinforced black BMW was a beast built for these conditions, chewing through the deep snow with a satisfying growl. He found the storm soothing. It muffled the city's frantic pace. He was still in his work clothes, planning to change into his black suit at the restaurant. It was a small rebellion, a way of holding on to his true self for as long as possible. As he rounded a curve, he saw the blinking lights of a sleek sedan buried in a snowbank. He slowed down, his brow furrowed. His first instinct, the one conditioned by his life as a future mafia boss, was to keep driving. Don't get involved. Complications were dangerous. But the mechanic in him saw a problem that needed solving. A person needed help. With a quiet sigh, he pulled over, his powerful headlights flooding the stranded car in brilliant light. The sudden glare made Amara jump. For a second, fear flickered through her, a lone woman on a deserted street. She watched as a tall figure emerged, broad-shouldered and confident. He didn't approach her window directly, but stopped a respectful distance away, studying her car's predicament with a practiced eye. Amara cracked her window, the freezing air hitting her face. Having some trouble? His voice came, a low, calm rumble. You could say that, she replied, her voice tight with frustration. My car seems to have taken a liking to this snowbank. A hint of a smile touched his lips. The fancy ones hate the cold. All show, no grip. He walked to the back of her car, knelt, and brushed snow away from the tire with a gloved hand. Amara watched him, a mix of suspicion and gratitude swirling within her. He didn't seem like a threat. He seemed capable. There was an earthiness to him, a total contrast to the polished men in her world. You're in deep, he called out. You can call a tow truck, but you'll be waiting all night. I can probably get you out. Amara hesitated. Accepting help from a stranger went against every instinct. But the alternative was freezing to death. And what's your price? She asked, the lawyer in her automatically assessing the deal. He stood and turned to face her fully. He was handsome in a rugged, unassuming way, with a strong jaw and intelligent dark eyes. No price, he said, that small smile returning. Just trying to be a decent human being. Also, you're blocking my favorite shortcut. His light, self-deprecating humor disarmed her. She found herself smiling back, a genuine smile. All right, decent human being, she said. What's the plan? He gestured to his BMW. I've got a shovel and some traction mats. It'll mean getting a little snowy, but we can dig you out. Unless you'd rather not mess up the shoes, he glanced down at her impractical heels. The shoes can be replaced, she said with new determination. Let's do it. He gave a short, approving nod. Okay, lawyer, he said, though she hadn't told him her profession. Let's get to work. For the next 20 minutes, they worked in a surprisingly efficient rhythm. He handed her a shovel, and she looked from the tool to her expensive wool coat, then got to work. The physical labor was a welcome release from the day's stress. He worked with a powerful precision, while she was clumsy at first, but she quickly found her own rhythm. So, you're a lawyer? He asked, pausing to lean on his shovel. How'd you know? The car, the coat, he said with a shrug. And you asked about my price, only lawyers talk like that. She laughed, a real, throaty sound that surprised her. Guilty. Corporate law. I'm a mechanic, he said. I fix things. Much simpler, a mechanic. It made perfect sense. I work on old cars, he added, a new warmth in his voice. Things with soul. Not like this computer on wheels. It has a heated steering wheel, she countered. He chuckled. Fair enough. Once the wheels were clear, he wedged 2 bright orange mats under her tires. Get in, give it gas gently, and I'll push from the back. She got into the driver's seat and saw him brace himself against the trunk. Ready, he yelled. Ready. She pressed the accelerator, the wheels spun, then caught. The car lurched forward, and with a final, mighty shove from him, it broke free from the snowdrift. A triumphant whoop escaped her lips. She jumped out of the car, forgetting the cold. We did it. He was leaning against the car, breathing heavily, a broad grin on his face. With snowflakes melting in his dark hair, Amara thought he was the most handsome man she had ever seen. The road ahead, however, was still treacherous. These are summer tires, he said, his expression turning serious. You shouldn't drive this car any further tonight. Where were you headed? I can give you a ride. Her internal alarm bells rang. Getting into a car with a stranger? But he had been nothing but kind and helpful. Trusting him felt like a better risk than trying to drive her car on the icy roads. Okay, she said. Thank you. The interior of his black BMW was warm and clean. He handed her a thermos of hot coffee, a simple, thoughtful gesture that nearly brought her to tears. "So," he said, pulling away from the curb, "where to, lawyer?" "An obnoxiously fancy restaurant called the Gilded Orchid," she said, making a face. "I have a work dinner I'm dreading." He glanced at her, a strange expression on his face. "Small world," he muttered. "Why's that?" "I'm on my way there too," he said, his voice tight. "A family obligation. Not something I'm looking forward to, either." They fell into an easy conversation, talking about their jobs. He spoke passionately about restoring old engines, and she told him about the pro bono cases she took, helping people fight illegal evictions. He listened intently as they drove through the snow-blanketed streets. Ahead, a grand, floodlit building came into view. The sign in elegant gold script read, "The Gilded Orchid." Kenji pulled the BMW to a stop. "Well, this is my stop," he said with a weary sigh. Amara stared at him, her mind struggling to process what was happening. "What?" "No, this is my stop." A slow, dawning horror settled over her. You're not here to meet a lawyer?" He turned to her slowly, his own eyes wide with the same shocking realization. "You're not Amara Okoro, are you?" She could only nod, her mouth suddenly dry. "You must be Kenji Tanaka." A heavy silence filled the car. They stared at each other, the mechanic and the lawyer, two strangers who had just shared a genuine connection, now revealed to be the dreaded blind dates they had both been trying to escape. For a long moment, the space between them crackled with sheer comedy. Amara was the first to break the silence with a sharp laugh of disbelief. "You have got to be kidding me," she breathed. "The universe is a terrible comedian." Kenji leaned his head back, a slow smile spreading across his face. "I was thinking the same thing. They told me you were a lawyer. I was picturing someone stuffy and boring." Amara snorted. "And they told me you were from a respectable family. I was picturing a trust fund kid who plays polo." The tension shattered, replaced by a shared wave of relief. The valet tapped impatiently on the window, bringing them back to reality. "So," Kenji said, turning to her, "do we go in there and pretend to be the boring people we're supposed to be?" Amara looked at the fancy restaurant, then back at the man who had shoveled snow for her. The choice was easy. "Absolutely not," she said. "Besides, I'm wearing the wrong shoes. I'm starving, though. Know a place that serves real food?" His eyes lit up. "I know the perfect place." He shifted the BMW into drive and pulled away from the Gilded Orchid without a backward glance. He drove them to a small, brightly lit diner tucked between a laundromat and a bookstore. The moment they stepped inside, the comforting smell of coffee and sizzling bacon enveloped them. It was real, warm, and alive. They slid into a worn vinyl booth, and he ordered burgers and milkshakes for them both. Over dinner, they talked for hours. The pretense of the blind date was gone. He told her about his grandfather, a man of immense expectations, and the suffocating pressure of a legacy he didn't want. She told him about her parents, Nigerian immigrants who had sacrificed everything for her to succeed. He learned that her sharp legal mind was matched by a fierce loyalty, and she learned that his quiet exterior hid a deep desire for a simple, honest life. "I feel like I'm supposed to be negotiating a treaty right now," Kenji confessed. "Instead, I'm just happy." The word hung in the air between them. Amara felt it too. With him, she didn't have to perform. She was just Amara. And he was just Kenji, the kind mechanic who had rescued her from the snow. As he drove her back to her car later that night, he walked her to her door. "I had a really good time tonight, Amara," he said, his voice sincere. "Me too, Kenji. Thank you for everything." An unspoken question lingered in the cold air. Before she could overthink it, he reached out, his calloused fingers gently tucking a stray braid behind her ear. The touch was electric. "I'd like to see you again," he said, his dark eyes searching hers. "Somewhere we're not supposed to be." She leaned in, her voice a whisper. "I'd like that very much." The bubble burst on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. Amara was working on her biggest pro bono case yet, representing small business owners being forced out by a shadowy development corporation called J Development. They used intimidation and strong-arm tactics, a classic David and Goliath fight. Late one night, she had a breakthrough. She traced the shell corporations to the man at the top, the ultimate authority, Kenji's grandfather. Amara stared at the name, her blood running cold. It had to be a coincidence. But a deeper search confirmed her worst fears. The respectable family was the Jade Serpent Syndicate, one of the city's most powerful criminal organizations. Jade Development wasn't just a client. It was the syndicate. Kenji wasn't just an heir. He was the heir to a criminal empire, a future mafia boss. The room began to spin. Every memory of him was now tainted. His talk of performance and family obligations, the secret phone calls. He had let her fall in love with a fantasy, the gentle mechanic, while hiding the truth of the mafia prince. She was dating the enemy, sleeping with the man whose family was destroying the lives of the people she had sworn to protect. The choice wasn't a choice at all. That evening, he came to her apartment with takeout from their favorite diner. He took one look at her pale, stony face, and his smile vanished. "Amara? What's wrong?" She stood in the doorway and held out the legal document with his grandfather's name on it. "J Development," she said, her voice hollow. "Ring any bells?" The color drained from his face. The wall between his two worlds crumbled. "Amara, I can explain." "Can you?" She shot back, her hurt igniting into anger. "Can you explain how the man who talks about honesty belongs to a family that is destroying my clients' lives? Were you ever going to tell me?" "It's not what you think," he pleaded. "I'm not like them. I hate it. I've spent my life trying to escape it." "But you haven't escaped it, have you?" she said, the words like shards of glass. "You're still his heir. Every dollar you spend, every nice suit you wear, it's paid for by their suffering." Every word was a blow. "I love you, Amara," he whispered, his voice cracking. It was the first time he'd said it. "Don't," she said, a single tear tracing a path down her cheek. "Don't you dare say that to me. We're done, Kenji. Get out." He stood there for a long moment, his face a mask of anguish, before he finally turned and walked away, leaving Amara alone with the ruins of their impossible love story. The weeks that followed were a gray misery. Amara threw herself into the case with a terrifying ferocity, fueled by coffee and heartbreak. Every document with his family's name was a fresh stab to the heart. Across town, Kenji was living in his own hell. Amara's rejection had been the brutal push he needed. Her words, "You're still part of it," haunted him. He realized that by doing nothing, he was complicit. He couldn't be the man she deserved while still tied to the syndicate. He requested a formal meeting with his grandfather, the head of the powerful Mafia family. They met in a study that smelled of old books and power. "I am stepping away," Kenji said, his voice resolute. "From the business. From the family. From all of it." His grandfather's silence was menacing. "You are my only heir. This is your birthright." "It's a cage," Kenji replied. "And the J Development project ends now. You will sell the properties back to the original owners." "That is not a request you can make," the old man hissed. "It's not a request," Kenji said, sliding a slim data drive across the desk. "That contains account numbers, logs, names. Everything. It's my insurance. If anything happens to Amara Okoro or her clients, it all goes to the federal prosecutor." It was a declaration of war against his own family. "You would destroy us?" his grandfather whispered. "You destroyed this family long before I was born," Kenji said, standing. "I'm just choosing to stop living in the ruins." He walked out, not knowing if he had just signed his own death warrant. All he knew was that for the first time he was the one steering his own life, and he was steering toward the honest man Amara deserved. Amara was in her office when her lead client called, his voice trembling with excitement. "Miss Okoro, they're pulling out. They're canceling the project. They offered to sell us our shops back." Amara sank into her chair, her mind reeling. It made no sense. Why would the syndicate surrender? That night, a news alert popped up on her phone. Kwon Jae-sung, patriarch of powerful import-export empire, announces unexpected retirement. Grandson, Kenji Tanaka, formally severs all ties with family business. She read the article, her heart pounding. He had abdicated. He had given up the empire, the fortune, everything. He had forced his family's hand. He had done it for her. He had made things right. The realization washed over her, a wave of shock, guilt, and overwhelming love. She drove to his garage, her hands shaking. The door was slightly ajar, a warm light spilling out. He was there, sanding a classic car, his back to her. He looked lighter, as if a great weight had been lifted from his shoulders. He heard her and slowly turned around. His face was tired, but his eyes were clear. There were no more secrets. "Amara," he breathed. She walked toward him and did the only thing that felt right. She closed the distance between them, wrapped her arms around his neck, and kissed him. It was a kiss of forgiveness, of gratitude, of a love that had been tested by fire. He pulled her tight, as if he was afraid she might disappear. "I thought I'd lost you," he murmured against her lips. "You came back," she whispered, tears in her eyes. "You came back to me." "I never left," he said, resting his forehead against hers. "I just had to burn down my old house so I could come home." In the quiet sanctuary of the garage, surrounded by the beautiful, broken things he was dedicated to restoring, Amara knew she was finally home too. 2 years later, the sign over the brick warehouse didn't bear his family name. It said Legacy Restoration. It was Kenji's quiet promise to build a new legacy of integrity. The business was a huge success. Amara, now a partner at her firm, stood in the doorway of his office, holding 2 mugs of coffee. She had learned to balance her life, and most evenings she came here, to their sanctuary. She handed him a mug, their fingers brushing. "Remember that night in the snow?" he asked, wrapping an arm around her waist. "You asked me what my price was." "I was such a lawyer," she groaned, burying her face in his chest. "No," he said, tilting her chin up. "You were just figuring out the terms. And I guess I was too." He leaned in and kissed her, a slow, tender kiss full of the comfort and certainty of their shared future. "And what are the terms?" she whispered against his lips. "This," he said, kissing her again. "Just this. It turns out the price was everything. And it was the best deal I ever made."